seen that the chat has been busy while I've been speaking, and I'd be happy if Ravi could help me now to go through those that have already come up.
Thanks for that, David. So we've had a couple of questions and a few points. Paddy did point out that developing the cluster in Cambridge took over 50 years, and there's certainly feedback that we could do much better than that. Eva mentioned that we've got mini clusters in the region already, so connecting these under the HDC will be certainly a marvellous thing. And Paddy also mentioned connecting existing activity, adding value and reducing duplication will be key. We had a good question from Jane Matthew, who said, regarding the services that are proposed, a number of these already exist. So how will this work to avoid duplication and confusion? So I'll let you answer that one if you can, David.
Yeah, okay. So I've spoken to somebody who was intimately involved in establishing clusters in Cambridge, and of course they're now part of the Golden Triangle, and a lot of external businesses from outside the UK look there first for where they might want to set up. And it'll take us a very long time to get into that position that Cambridge has got. But we have learned from what Cambridge did that was strong and has made them strong, and we're going to incorporate those parts of what have made them successful into our model, so that hopefully it helps us to be successful. I agree with the point about mini clusters, I think there is a little bit of a weakness in our knowledge of our own sector in the West Midlands, which I would like the cluster to be able to address going forward, but I accept that it will take time. But an early win would be to join the dots between mini clusters that already exist. And Paddy's point is very valid about trying to help with reducing the duplication, which does bring me on to Jane's point really about the services that already exist. Because what we've learned already from our engagement with those other organisations that provide services is that there are already opportunities for there to be misunderstandings, duplications, missteps between organisations as somebody's passed from one to another. And what we want to do is we want to come in and help reduce those missteps, misunderstandings and duplications as much as we can. So we'd like to be a little bit strategic over what all these other services are that are being offered, and where we can kind of plug into them, where we would very much like to. So I've had talks with organisations like Medilink about whether we could kind of jointly provide services, and they've got members and we'll have members, and maybe we can kind of share a membership arrangement going forward. So we have had these initial thoughts about how we might tackle those issues about services that other people already provide and that we're talking about providing, in just simply joining them up so that there are not two services, but there's just the one. And I think we can achieve that as we go forward. And one of the things that I'd like us to be helpful with is when we make bids as a region for what are scarce public resources, when there's government grants and so on, we'd like to be involved in making sure that we've got the strongest possible consortium and cooperation involved in presenting the bid, so that one of the reasons we're not turned down is that we didn't do enough consultation, or we didn't have enough partners or collaboration in the model. So I believe there's some expertise we can bring.
I certainly agree with that, David. And if I can add a point in my short experience as well, was that we successfully put in a collaborative bid for the 5G as a region. And one of the strengths that came across from government was that we was united as a region. And I think in the past years, there was a number of bids that came for the West Midlands to host Channel 4, and we weren't successful. So it just shows you that when you collaborate as a region, you have a lot more potential for success. Yeah. We've had another question from Andy Wilkinson, who's got a good one, saying, will there be a physical space for the cluster? Only thinking that in this new COVID-19 world, businesses are looking for ways to work in other citywide spaces and meet physically other people as well.
Yeah, maybe if Andy could come off.
Oh yeah, sorry, I think I am David? Am I off mute?
Yeah, tell me what you mean by your question.
Well, no, only that actually I've just been seeing recently that quite a lot of pubs and things are now offering business spaces for people, as opposed to working from home. They can go to a pub and, you know, have a little table and internet and a coffee and a sandwich or a beer or whatever. And I was only thinking, will the cluster, because there used to be quite successful sort of clusters at Faraday Wharf. I think there was a manufacturing one, and maybe there was an ICT one. And smaller
there were
businesses,
loads of them. Yeah,
there were loads of them, Paddy. Yeah, and smaller businesses would come in and be able to, you know, either desk rent or just meet other, sometimes larger brands or different brands, or they could connect different technologies or ideas. And just thinking, if there was a physical space, it would seem to me, in this new world that we're going into, that it could be an interesting opportunity for smaller businesses.
Yeah, okay, so the first answer to that is that as an organisation, we would expect eventually to have our own office with a space which we can share with our members for sure. Going back to Jane's point, one of the things I'd like to do is to, if it's at all possible, to co-locate with some of the other organisations I've just been talking about, in order to reduce the risk of miscommunication between us, and to get rid of some of that duplication and cooperate more closely with each other. And what we'll be looking for is a choice of locations where we have partners at that place where the location is, who are willing to help us with either holding big events or little events, or, as you say, offering little opportunities for workspaces for people who want to get a break from working from home or working alone, and having some people around them. And eventually having a sort of, if you think of a library in the 20th century was a place some people might like to go and kind of sit down and study. I think in the 21st century, we're looking at places where there's an opportunity both to kind of search the net and so on, while you're amongst friends and you can talk and share ideas and just share sometimes a joke in order to kind of lighten the tension.
Absolutely.
So all of those things are in our mind, yes.
I think the new bar area in the new Grand Hotel in Colmore Row would be ideal, David. It's looking rather good.
I like it.
Can I just say, these principles, the idea of having a big company supporting smaller companies, already exists, the corporate venturing type model. So, for instance, the Serendip incubator at Innovation Birmingham operates on this basis, where it has, you know, Barclays are supporting small companies around the development of financial services. And West Midlands Academic Health Science Network provides the support to small companies in the health space. But actually there are, and I think this is the key thing for the cluster. You know, we did a big piece of work before we started this bit. We did a big piece of work last year, and actually there are lots of elements of cluster that already exist. And this plays to Jane's question. There's lots of organizations out there which are either, you know, they run out of a particular organization which has its own targets and its own aspirations, or it's postcode limited because it's ERDF, or it's got a particular focus. And all these things are really quite disjointed. There's lots of really good stuff there, but it's not connected. And quite often they compete with one another. And that's one of the challenges we've had for such a long time, is actually the bits of the region that bid separately for bits of funds. It actually presents quite a disunited view of what we've got here. You know, Manchester, I have no illusions that Manchester has any less tensions underneath it, but their veneer is a lot thicker than ours. And I think it has come back to bite us a couple of times that we don't collaborate enough. What we have are lots of assets, and the function of the cluster, and the reason it's an independent organisation and not sitting within a university or within the LEP, it's a separate thing, is that it has no vested interest in any one partner doing better than anyone else. Its sole purpose is to connect the pieces together and lever value from them. And Lord knows there's enough work to go round and not enough money to go round. So the last thing in the world we want to do is actually to set the cluster up to compete with a service that already exists. The value of the cluster will be in directing that inquiry to the right place and gaining value.
Thanks, Paddy. I think I have to draw this to a close now. So what I'd like to say is we will email everybody with the presentation and the link to the website. And if people could have a look at those slides on the services and the ways of raising money and comment specifically on those, we'd be really, really grateful. But what I'd like to leave as today's parting message is that I think you can tell from what I've said, Ravi said, and Paddy has said, that we are hard-headed about this. We've not got rose-tinted glasses on. We know what the challenges are, and we know what the problems are, but equally we think we know what some of the solutions are. So we've got the enthusiasm and the ambition, and I would say the optimism that we can create something that's stronger than it has been in the past. And you know, some of the issues that people constantly mention: lack of visibility of the region beyond the region, and lack of finance for people trying to do something in the region, and are particular ones that come up to my memory. We think we can add something to solve those problems. So it's a message of hope from today to everybody. So can I hand back to Eva, because Eva's chairing the session, for Eva to kind of sum up and close the meeting.
Thank you very much, David. Fascinating presentation. And I think from my point of view, having been around on the scene of the networks, clusters, etc., in my previous roles, it's really reassuring and refreshing that the way this organization is being set up is a very consultative process, which includes multitude of stakeholders and, most importantly, businesses of all sorts of sizes, because a lot of those initiatives are sort of created on people's desks by people with experience from the public sector, where they do not really ask any of the outsiders or end users about what is it might benefit you. And, you know, rule number one of your primary market research: ask your clients, what are they after? Do not create a service or product offering that nobody will be interested in, or price it at a level that will be prohibitive, or price it at a level which will make you unsustainable long term. And when you talk about, you know, wishing to be independent and self-sustainable and not relying on being a publicly funded organization, that's super important. So really reassuring, really refreshing take on setting up something that will connect us all together, and absolutely recognizing that we have had lack of success in the past because of the fragmentation of the region, fully visible in public to the outside world, and this will hopefully overcome it. So I just wanted to ask you, obviously the organization is evolving and is being set up. Are there sort of future event dates or any meetings that you have planned in the forthcoming few weeks or months that you could share with us at this point?
Yeah, so we have a whole program of these roadshows. You are the first, but we've got 5 more that we've either published on Eventbrite or are about to publish on Eventbrite. So we do have the dates. They're in November and the beginning of December. And the plan is to be going around the region with the roadshow. So different hosts. So it won't be you next time, but it might be someone in another part of the region, and sometimes in a different sector from the region, so that we get that breadth and continue to be, as you say, consultative with people. And when we've finished those, I have a steering group who's in charge of the money they're paying me to do this work. And I have to report back to them what the findings were, and do I really think now that this is a runner because of what the responses were? In which case we will draw up the business plan for the cluster and launch the cluster early in the new year.
And I'll circulate some of the dates of the future meetings with the presentations that I'm going to send afterwards. And we've got a couple of them. I can mention them quickly. 4th of November will be the University of Wolverhampton. 11th of November will be SCC. 18th of November will be University Hospital Coventry, Warwickshire. 25th of November, you've got Derek Sear and the Demand Hub. And 2nd of December as well, colleagues in Staffordshire there coming together with the Chamber and the University. And we've got a final opportunity if anybody else wants to host it for the 9th of December.
Right.
Fantastic.
Right.
What a packed schedule, and what a varied schedule. That's
Yes.
also really reassuring and refreshing to see variety of locations and variety
Yes.
of
Very
stakeholders, because I think the sort of some of the locations in the previous initiatives got a little bit missed out and sort of got overshadowed by the larger counterparts, etc. So it's really nice to see that everyone is in reality being brought together under this banner. So it's fantastic. I wanted to thank you all for attending, to our guests and to our speakers, most importantly for sharing all those insights, and Ravi, to you for your superb handling of all the technical things that could have gone wrong and haven't. So it's a highly successful meeting where no one gets frozen, suspended or silenced against their wishes. And many thanks to everyone for their questions. I can see there's some more comments from the attendees, and there seems to be quite a few questions that need a bit of a follow-up and subsequent meetings. So
we will pick them up.
It sounds like everyone's been really engaged, and there's some follow-up activities coming out of this meeting. So thank you again, and thank you very much for the opportunity to host it and share what we do with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Eva. So goodbye, everybody, and keep in touch.